Hello. Morning, church. Good morning to everyone here and to those at home um, worshiping today. I was slow coming up because I'm kind of like terrified about this. Um, the last time I was here is that Gabby and Cindy were at home, but today they're here. So, you know. Well, again, thanks for having me here again. And this is a great opportunity for me. It's a blessed opportunity. And my message today is about a father's words. Okay. Got a confession to make. If you all can see the screen. When I was younger, I never really liked to talk to my dad. I always felt my dad is too rough, too sarcastic, and I didn't like, as a young man, I didn't like talking to him that way. But again, don't get me wrong. It's not that I have daddy issues or I don't like my father. It's just that I just think that my parents are quirky. They're very different from the setting where I grew up. You know, and I love my parents. I love my dad. And I love my parents very much. My dad would say things like, "Well, I'm from the Philippines, and I grew up in the Tagalog dialect, and we call dad or father tatay." My tatay will say, "Your sister is better than you." Right? Okay. And I'll go like, "How is she better than me?" You know, and better in what way? Right? So, and she'll go like, "You always wake up late." I like always, like always, always, like every day, always, like all the time, right? And sometimes he'll say something like this, right? Um, your friend shaved his head. He must be taking drugs. I go like, how do you put? How does he come up with these things, right? You know. And of course, my dad is speaking to me in Tagalog, but my parents were actually from a different province. They speak a different dialect, which is Hiligaynon. For some of our Filipino brethren here, they know that the Philippines probably have like more than 100 dialects. And when I grew up, I traveled around the Philippines and I realized that I have misunderstood my parents' cultural background. In their background, in their dialect, they speak, they like to banter, They like to put down each other. It's like their way of talking nicely to each other, But when you translate that to Tagalog or even to English, you lose it. It becomes rough. It becomes like, in my thinking back then, uneducated, or it seems like, like nonsense to me, right? But after a while, when I do understand the dialect, but after a while, I start to think that, hey, this is actually sweet, funny, witty, and smart. And when I was growing up, I just thought, they're like one-liners, like, who says that, right? So, yeah, I think for people here in Singapore, I know there's, like in Chinese, there's also dialects, right? And I'm pretty sure that some dialects are very punchy, when spoken. And then when you translate them to English, worse, right? you know, or translate them to something else, it's like, oops, you kind of lose the punchline, right? Okay, so that's something I've learned. And I've also learned quite a lot of things throughout the years. And I've learned that everything's connected and related. How we behave at home, okay, I learned that reflects our capabilities as parents, not just fathers, and the quality of our relationships. How we develop our capabilities as fathers, as parents, and nurture our relationship reflects our beliefs and values. Okay, what's important to us, right? Okay, and how we cultivate those beliefs and values reflect our Christian identity. And that's very important because how we mature that Christian identity, our Christian identity, shows how important Christ is in our lives. You know, so if we are Christ-centered, then we see that everything ultimately is connected and related to Christ and our Christian identity. Okay. Going back to the topic of the day, a father's words. Okay, as you see earlier, it was read from 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 7 to 12. Okay, there are a few things that are as powerful as father's words. Words matter. Words that we speak matter. They matter a lot. Okay, we may not think they matter to us, but it could matter to other people. In some cases, it also matters to us most than it matters. But at the end of the day, words do matter. Okay, taken from Proverbs 18:21, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. So whether it's good, there will be fruits. It's bad, there will be fruits as well. So there are consequences, there are outcomes to what we say. Okay, now let's pause for a while and think about that. Think about, do we agree that words parents speak, not just fathers? I would say most of us here are from a culture that, the fathers speak the loudest at home, maybe, right? Although my grandmother speaks louder than my grandfather, that's a different story, right? But in most culture, fathers are the ones who say things at home, and what they say to sons and daughters. Do we think that they are meaningless? Do we think they are powerful? Okay, whatever they are, to the eyes of a child, they're very powerful. Okay, our success as fathers depends a lot on the words we speak to our children, because they remember those. Okay, I know for a fact that Gabby remembers things that I've forgotten long time ago, right? In 1 Thessalonians 2, Paul is not really talking about fatherhood. He's talking about his relationship with the church in Thessalonica, right? And how he describes the ministry and his relationship to the brethren in Thessalonica. But however, there's a lot of really good, messages there for fathers and parents. When Brother Beng Chuan asked me, to share this, I was like, okay, let's do it. But after a while, I go like, hold on. I don't really have a PhD in fatherhood, and nobody became a parent after graduating with a bachelor degree in fatherhood and parenthood, right? So we're all newbies most of the time, and it takes like 10,000 years to get the PhD, right? And some of us will ever think that we never pass, And some of us maybe said, okay, pass, fail as a father, maybe pass as a grandfather. Who knows, right? But definitely, I don't know anybody who took a lot of time doing parenting studies before they even get into a relationship, or even have their children. Okay, but taken from Thessalonians, there's really a lot of good messages from Paul. Okay, now before I continue, one thing I also learned is that words separated from relationship are ineffective. Like there's no punch, there's no meaning. It's just like play by the ear, right? Because there's no relationship. However nice what that you say to a person, but it's not reinforced or it's not rooted in your relationship with that person, the words could become meaningless or could even be offensive sometimes, right? So words separated from relationship could be ineffective or worse, meaningless or offensive. Okay. Now, a few things that I love about the verses in 1 Thessalonians 2. Okay. If we read that, Paul was writing, instead we are like young children among you, just as nursing mother cares for her children. So we cared for you because we love you so much. We were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well. Okay. How often do we express our affection to our children? Okay. Are our children witness to how much we love other people too and care for other people? Someone told me before, a person who's nice to you but is very rude to the waiter is not nice. Right? Growing up also in a poorer environment, I see parents could be very nice to their children, but they're very mean to their partner. Or always quarrel with the partner. Right? So children like to see their parents loving, respectful, and affectionate as well. Okay, so how often do we express our love to our children and also to our partners, our spouse, and parents, and most importantly to God? Okay. Now, if you're starting to think, who are these kids, right, on the pictures? Well, our family, we sponsor children from around the world through a charitable organization, which I happen to work as well. So Gabby sponsors some as well through my credit card. Okay. So you'll see a few of them in the pictures later on. Okay. Now, another thing that Paul wrote about in Thessalonians 2 is that I'm just going to simply read the part that is in red. We were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well. Meaning, Paul and the leaders, the missionaries there, they're very transparent. Okay? They show humanity. Okay? They reveal what makes them passionate, why they love to work for God, and why they love the ministry. Okay? They also show their values, struggles. Okay? So how often do we do that? Okay? I know not my generation, but possibly my father and his father's generation, they're very stoic kind of fathers. Like sitting in the head of the table, be proper, mind your manners. Okay? So, yes, you can be that, but you can also be more. Okay? Now, with COVID-19, most of us work from home now. And I believe we become more transparent to our family, to our children. And for those who have grandkids who are staying with you. Become more transparent. People see the way you work, how you work, and how you conduct yourself at work. Now, showing humanity also means you have to be to have grace, to have compassion, and be forgiving to yourself. Remember that none of us are perfect fathers. And we have to forgive ourselves for that. We cannot think that we need to be perfect, and we only show perfect. So we have to forgive ourselves for our inequities as well. That's showing humanity. Also, very importantly, Paul said, our toil and hardship, we work night and day. People can see how Paul and others in that ministry work hard. Again, with COVID-19, our children, our families will see how hard we work. Or, Gabby told me the other day, I've never seen you work so hard, only today. Because she said, you always like, I don't think you're working. You know. But the truth is that when our children see that we're so diligent in other areas, they could have expectations as well that we should be diligent with the family as well. Do we have like family activities, family goals? You know, very intentional programs, very intentional goals for the family. Okay, it's not like it's not like a goal to go to Antarctica, you know, when COVID-19, you know, when the airports open. But is there something that you have like a father and daughter thing, right? You cycle together, or a father and son thing. You maybe swim together, okay? Or husband and wife thing. Maybe you walk around and makan somewhere together, right? Okay, do something not exorbitant and not difficult, but something that will build memories and create special moments. My nanay, my mom, used to tell me this: your success at school is for yourself only. Now, I give you a context why she said that. So one time, she told me, go cook the rice. I said, no. She said, why? Well, I'm doing my homework. Actually, I wasn't, you know. I was just telling her I'm doing my homework. But I wasn't. I never do my homework, to be honest. But Gabi does, you know, that's why I'm proud of her. And she goes like, do your homework. And I go like, no, I'm sorry. Go cook the rice. You know, I go like, no, I'm doing my homework. And she goes like, you know what? Your homework's for you, but the rice is for the family. And I was like my mom sometimes can say things that are like, blew me away, right? And of course, when the moment she speaks, it's gonna be more, right? You know how moms are sometimes, okay? And she said, like, in her dialect, she said, your success at school is for yourself. You'll go to school for yourself. But your success in the family and in life is for everybody, for the family. And I always remember this. Because sometimes we give ourselves excuses, right? If I get promoted at work, this is for the family. If I become a big man at work, this is for the family. Seriously? Really? How much of that is true? 50%? 60%? 30%? 10%? Nada. Right? Okay. Spiritual authenticity. If you talk the talk, do you do the walk? Faith in action. father's word should be consistent with his life. Does that mean perfection? Again, like I said earlier, it's not. It's just being authentic. We make mistakes. We ask God for forgiveness. And we try again. Does our kids, our children see that authenticity? That we're willing to submit ourselves to the Lord for forgiveness. That improvements to ourselves that we do, they're offerings to the Lord. That we submit those to the Lord. In 1 Thessalonians 2:10, okay, Paul said, "You are witnesses, and so is God, of how holy, righteous, and blameless we were among you who believed." Okay. Okay. Again, this is not about being perfect. This is about being authentic. Context is very important. Okay? All of us have different, unique family dynamics, right? No one family, I believe, will be exactly the same as another family. Or no relationship will be exactly the same as another relationship. However, if we ask ourselves, what should we stop doing and what should we start doing? Harshness, in my context, just to share with you, is the opposite of loving affection. Being aloft is opposite of having a transparent life. Some people would even say, if you're aloof, you're like living a double life. You have a life on your own because you distance yourself from people, and you have a life that's different when you're with people. Okay? Selfishness is the opposite of unselfish diligence. Okay? And hypocrisy, okay, although the word is too strong, okay, but in reality, okay, how many times when we grew up, everybody, as kids, that when our parents tell us, don't do this, but we see them doing it. Hypocrisy could be different terms and different languages, but the meaning may be the same in all languages. Right? How come he's not doing what he said I'm supposed to be doing? Does this rule only apply to me? Doesn't apply to him? Right? Okay. So does that mean that just look authentic? Right? Big question mark, right? The shape of Father's words, according to Paul, in 1 Thessalonians 2, 11 to 12, for you know that we dealt with each of you as a father deals with his own children, encouraging, comforting, urging. 3 very powerful words. You to live lives worthy of God, who calls you into his kingdom and glory. Encouragement in Greek is parakaleo, which means to call alongside. Okay. Comforting means to speak to someone in a friendly way. Urging or imploring means to testify something is true and to declare something must be done. Okay. I think it's a perfect sandwich, right? It's a perfect happy meal for communication. Encourage people, encourage our kids, our children, comfort them, and urge them as well into action. Okay? Because if we look at this, the way I see it, take one or two, it doesn't look complete, right? It's like a good formula when you're talking to your children. You encourage them, you comfort them, and you urge them, right? Okay. When I was sharing to a colleague of mine that I'm going to speak today about this, told me something really nice. Said that if you always tell your children that they'll be great, they'll be good if they do this, you are actually simply describing the outcome. Okay. And to them, it's very far. The outcome's very far. But do you really encourage them on, comfort them when they're making mistakes, and urge them to get going, right? Timely truth-telling with love, as we call it. Okay. Do we urge them when they're crying? What's the proper thing to do? Comfort them, right? When they're not interested, do we comfort them? It looks like we're encouraging them to be comfortable, right? But we should be encouraging them. So the right type of conversation in the right timing is very important. Okay. Timely truth-telling with love. So in conclusion, okay, I shared this to someone at work who's quite knowledgeable in fatherhood, and he told me that's so old style. Like people in the past, they'll use mealtime, travel time, and bedtime to tell their kids about the day, and also to pray and to share the words of God. But in your context, in your relationship with your children, what's the best time for you? Right? It doesn't have to be exactly this, but these are good, time of the day that most likely you'll be sharing with your family and children. Mealtime, in the car, on the way to school, in the bus, okay? Bedtime, before they go to sleep. But if not, pick other times that would work for you and your children. And always remember that the tongue has the power of life and death. And those who love it will eat its fruit. I encourage you to love your children, respect your children, and always remember that Father's words are very powerful. Again, thank you for having me today, and it's a blessed opportunity. Let's sing the invitation song.